Hello there, welcome to my talk, Back to the Future in 1854 London, Jon Snow fighting cholera with GenAI, the impact of AI on tomorrow's epidemiology. My name is Thomas, I am chapter lead for data and AI at CLOUDETEER, and I'm based in Berlin. So why is this talk starting with a case 170 years ago? Because history repeats very often itself. And what we want is, we want to avoid to make the same mistakes again from the past. There are unwritten, valid laws in terms of constitution and societies. And we want to recognize the core of a problem that is almost always the same in history. And in the end, to break down to the most convenient and best documented starting point. Yeah, and with that, we want to try to map and to project a solution to the present or even to the future as we do today. So we are traveling back to Soho and district of London, some 170 years ago, and first starting with who was Jon Snow and what was the way to solve the cholera outbreak, and then continue with using today's technologies to make just guesses how he could have changed the way of solving the issue today, and what are the main technological drivers to fight cholera today, and why is this still important right now and later in the future? How can this or similar approaches shape modern epidemiology to fight and prevent diseases? That's it about. So, due to industrial revolution, London was the largest European city in the mid-19th century and leading center of the modern world in Europe. And Soho was one of the most densely populated areas in London with 370 inhabitants per acre. And during the cholera outbreak, at least 600 people died and many thousand were infected due to inadequate sanitation and poor food and water hygiene. And okay, what exactly is cholera? Cholera is a bacterial disease typically spread through contaminated water, and that's why it is called the Blue Death, because of mainly the color of the water. Yeah, and Jon Snow, the gentleman on the left side, he was a medic by academia and was also a leading figure in the development of anesthesia. Yeah, and his findings led to the fundamental changes in the water and waste system of London, which significantly improved public health globally. And yeah, he investigated the case, the epidemic, and came to the conclusion that the water was contaminated from the board suite pump. And here's an example of a notice how to prevent from cholera, how to behave and what to do and what to not to do 170 years ago. Today, maybe it would just look a bit different. We will see later. And the result of his finding was very simple. In the end, it was just the removal of the handle of the pump. Yeah, and if any of this data science today would end like this, it would be, oh my God, this is so cool just to take this one action as a solution for a problem. But as we know, as data scientists, it is not that easy. This replica still exists today in the Broadwick Suite in London. So if you're going to vacation, shoot a photo, send me if you want, and have a nice day. Yeah, and what have he done to solve the problem? Yeah, there was kind of methodology he used. He was collecting the data and mapping them, doing some spatial analysis, forming a hypothesis, making water sample analysis, doing intervention in the result, and documented his way of solving the problem. And for the data collection, start with the first step. Jon Snow collected detailed information about the cholera cases, including the people affected, where they lived, their symptoms, and so on. And he plotted all this data, as you see in the middle, on a map to identify some patterns. And with the help of spatial analysis, by mapping these cases, he identified a limited area around the Broad Street in London where most of the cholera cases occurred. This helped him to narrow down the origin of the epidemic. And it was in the middle where you see the little letters pump and the big dot. Yeah? And forming a hypothesis based on his observations, Snow developed it and came to the conclusion it was transmitted by contaminated water. Yeah, knowing this, he did some water sample analysis, took a sample from the water pump in the Broad Street, and found some bacteria associated with cholera. And in the end, one of the most crucial steps was to convince the authorities in London to shut down the water pump. And after doing that, immediately the epidemic declined. Yeah? But the broader medical community was still convinced that the cholera was spread by air. It took many, many years to convince the community that it was delivered by water, not by air. So he documented all his steps, all his doings, and his findings, and presented them to the medical community. And it helped them in the end to establish the theory of waterborne transmission of the cholera. So Jon Snow's methodological approach revolutionized epidemiology and laid the foundation for modern public health measures even to today. So that were the steps he took to solve the problems, but now we want to have a look, okay, how would he do it, or we just suggest, or I do, with today's technologies. Yeah. So first, he might would start with the classical way again by using surveys and interviews, but this time with some more digitized help, like using digital forms or just some phone calls. Yeah. What's new would be using open online platforms where the public can leave their information of the symptoms, addresses, contacts, and so on, but encrypted. The most appropriate way would be gathering the data via electronic health records, what we call today classical EHR data from hospitals or doctors' surgery. The one or the other way, using GenAI in particular, LLM, he would be very powerful to summarize, analyze data, and make some recommendation for treatment. For instance, summarizing huge or long doctors' reports, identifying patterns, not only in the data among patients, but also their sentiment. It can help to create synthetic data if more is needed for customized models we want to train. He's able to predict the spread of cholera not only in quantifying, but also in geographical directions on a timeline. GenAI would be also powerful on the creation of the host of the data. If you're going back to the backend, like it can generate surveys and interview questions which are more target-oriented than in old standardized forms. It also can create interfaces for better user experience on platforms, maybe. And also very helpful in designing structures of databases or development of hospital management systems. Coming to the second step of this methodology, the spatial analysis, where one of the most critical steps in locating the source of the cholera. By using geographical information system, short GIS, he might be even quicker in finding the hotspot. Yeah, mapping the cholera cases, he may have plotted the known cholera cases on a digital map with all necessary details about it. Each case would be represented by a dot, like like a scatter plot. And for spatial analysis, by mapping the cases, Jon Snow would have been able to recognize patterns immediately by clustering method, for example, without looking for concentrations of cases and highlighting them on the map manually. And he would also create some buffer zones. The tool would have drawn a buffer zone around each cholera case with a specific radius. And this radius could be based on the speed of the spread of the disease. And the overlap of the two buffer zones would indicate the likely catchment area of a cholera. And the analysis of water pumps and surroundings could maybe automatically have marked the location of the water pumps near the cholera cases on the map and its water pipe system. You would also have considered other relevant factors such as roads, sewers, and population density, and so on. Comparison with the water pumps position, maybe he would have overlaid the buffer zones of cholera faults with the locations of the water pumps. And if the water pumps were located within the buffer zone, he would have a strong indication that the pump could be the source of the contamination, but not only the main pump, but also other pumps that are sorted in a list by highest probabilities of being the source. And in this step, GenAI could support here in different ways. So providing detailed summary for each data point on the map, drawing a road along the street, the map, visualizing the journey of the spread over areas and buffer zones, integration of visual data like statistics from the previous step, or signs and colors for warnings and highest densities. So based on these analyses, Snow would have investigated the broadsheet water pump in a more detail and even faster, and maybe some more significant pumps in intersecting buffer zones. So after he located the source of the spread, the name pump, he would do some water sample analysis, and avoiding taking water samples from the pump manually and analyzing them one by one, which can be very time consuming. Jon Snow maybe would insist some smart sensors, directly on the pumps that measures various water quality parameters such as temperature, pH value, dissolved oxygen, turbidity, conductivity, bacteria, etc. in real time. Using an IoT gateway to wirelessly receive the data from the sensors and send it to a platform where it can be stored, processed, and analyzed. Using centralized platforms to visualize the data in real time, receive alerts when water quality is outside acceptable limits, and take action such as closing the contaminated pumps or notifying the authorities or communication channels. So, and also here, GenAI and LLMs are coming into game as a laboratory assistant. For example, for smart sensors, we can directly interpretation of complex data patterns on the edge, detecting anomalies, alerting to potential contamination events, predictive maintenance in terms of sensor quality. It also can be integrated with IoT gateways to enhance their functionality in several ways, like NLP, natural language processing, can process and understand natural language commands, allowing users to interact directly with the IoT devices using conversational language. LLMs can generate scripts or control sequences for automating tasks across connected IoT devices. Even for decision-making, by understanding context and user preferences, LLMs can assist in making decisions about device behavior. In terms of security, they can help monitor and detect potential security threats in network traffics to IoT devices. So LLMs can be utilized for many kinds and for IoT platforms also in very innovative ways, just like for task planning and automation. They can orchestrate complex task executions by collaborating with IoT devices. They can generate control scripts from natural language description, transforming them into code for device control. Enhance collaboration by integrating with domain-specific AI modules. LLM can enable IoT devices to work together more effectively, handling integrate tasks that require the cooperation of multiple devices, and a natural language interface in IoT platforms. So LLMs can provide a conversational interface for users to interact directly with the IoT devices, making the technology more accessible and user-friendly. Learning and evolution. IoT platforms can evolve and become more sophisticated over time as LLMs accumulate experiences and interactions, enhancing response speed and effectiveness. Semantic analysis. LLMs can perform semantic analysis of the data collected by IoT devices, optimizing responses and actions based on the context and the user needs. But in the end, he also has to somehow document all his methodology steps and results and communicate it to the public. And this is another crucial step for him. And it can be done very simply, as we know, by text, by speech, by visuals, and over different channels, like for educational outreach, collaboration with public institutions, or public notification, like we saw in the beginning, the notice sheet. Yeah, and for educational outreach, educational campaigns might have been started to inform public about cholera prevention and clean water supplies, and synthesizing findings into reports tailored for public health officials, aiding in the formulation of policies to combat the cholera outbreak. And for the public notification, also automate the creation of informative text, speeches, and visuals to communicate the findings to the public, and during rapid dissemination of crucial health information. Yeah, but there are mainly three big technological drivers for Jon Snow's modern approach in the background of his methodology. That are first AI, as we know, artificial intelligence, or rather data science. This is the area where our magic takes place, our brain. GenAI, LLMs, machine learning, neural networks, and so on. And second and third, the cloud, the area of the power behind the magic, our heart, maybe. And reasons for scalability, resource management, processing big data, controlling cost optimization, and also edge computing at third is the area where the action takes place directly at the source. It's like using our hands. And the advantages there are like high speed, reduced latency, and sometimes security and data privacy. Depends on the case you're working. So, but the main question here is, where can we place the step of Jon Snow's methodology here in this scheme? And it is just my suggestion that you can put the data collection task on the button to the edge computing part, and the real-time monitoring IoT somehow between cloud and edge computing. You can do it also there or there, and the communication also, because it's also about the communication between the IoT sensors, but also the communication of the finding and results to the publics, and using AI for the analysis in personal data or spatial way, or directly on the edge where it happened with the sensors for the water analysis. But feel free to make your own suggestion. Let me know where you would place those steps. Maybe there are some more. Let's talk about, let's discuss it. Would be very interesting. Why is this topic even important today? Yeah, fighting cholera. Okay, it is clear cholera remains a global threat even today, with estimated 1.3 to 4 million cases and 21,000 to 143,000 deaths annually worldwide. And there are many areas globally where the water and sanitation supply is inadequate. We can apply our approaches to other epidemics and pandemics. And another reason is the technological improvement right now in AI, cloud, and edge computing, which we can and should use, and also the rising awareness of to use artificial intelligence for the better, for a good purpose, like we're doing here in this event. So I would just recommend every epidemiologist to use the power of AI, cloud, and edge computing. AI can help detect, to diagnose, and to predict the spread and impact of diseases by analyzing large data and diverse data sources. Cloud computing, on the other hand, enables us to store, access, and share the data and communicate the findings to the public, reducing the cost and complexity of data management and enabling collaboration and scalability for providing computational power for big data. And the last one, edge computing, supports to process and analyze data at the point of origin on the edge, such as sensors, cameras, etc., reducing the latency, bandwidth, and security risk of data transmission and enabling real-time feedback and action. In practice, the combination of this magic triangle might change the game for all other pandemics and epidemics. So if you find this very interesting and have some other ideas or other approaches, reach out for me. You can now ask questions for it. And here you have my email, you have a QR code to reach out for me via LinkedIn. And I hope you enjoyed the talk and wish you a very informative event.